Hey, welcome back to Dad Space. It's Dave. I hope you're doing well. We're here together. A bunch of dads. In the same space. Hence the name Dad Space. Wait a minute, that makes sense. You're here, I'm here. We're all in the same space. It all makes sense now. That's why the podcast is called Dad Space, because we're all here. On Dad Space. I'm glad that you're here. So you can tell I'm a little punchy. My coffee hasn't kicked in yet. And I hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. I want to talk to you a little bit. I want to talk to the empty nester dads. Okay? So you young dads, you can listen in. But this is really kind of focused on the empty nester dads here on Dad Space. Here we go. So for the empty nest dads in the house, of which I am one. I have 3 adult children, all out of the house. And I'm kind of navigating my way through the emptiness in the home. It's really weird to have all this space. And I don't have to be anywhere. Like I don't have to drive anybody anywhere. And I don't have to take kids places and get lunches ready in the evening for tomorrow or none of that stuff. I don't have to drive them to school. Okay, here we go. Let me just a side tangent. When we purchased our home where we live today, our kids were just starting high school when we bought this house. So we bought our house so that it was a close walk to this high school we really wanted our kids to go to. And it's funny, when I grew up, or I feel like I'm old. Okay, all right, I know. When I grew up, I had to walk a long way to school. Yes, uphill both ways in the snow up to my ears, all of that. But I actually went back and retraced my path to school as an adult now, and I walked a long way, twice, maybe 3 times further than my kids had to walk to go to high school. But do you think they would walk to high school? No. No. We would have to drive them. And it's we moved close to the school so you could walk to the school. But no, we need a ride. Yeah, I don't have to do that anymore, which is kind of cool. I have some free time, which means I can podcast a lot and be here with you. So that's a good thing. The one thing I remember when I got married to my wife, Jen, 31 years ago, was the blending of families. Now, if you're a newly married husband, you have your new partner, you're setting up your home and all that, I can remember, here's one too. I can remember setting up our cupboards in the kitchen. So for me, the glasses were always in the cupboard on the left-hand side of the sink. And then for contrast, let's say, for example, for Jen, she grew up with the glasses being on the right-hand side of the sink. So here we are standing in the kitchen going, well, do we put the glasses in the cupboard on the left for Dave or on the right for Jen? Compromise. True. Yes. And so you're trying to create this new world, the two of you, about how the house is going to run and where things go and who does what. And you're kind of building this new world together. At the same time, you have the pressure of family to continue doing and being who you were prior to getting married. So you have family birthdays, family events, family vacation things, special dinners, special anniversaries. I remember when our family was young, Jen's family really wanted to get together on every single birthday. So there's multiple grandchildren, partners, spouses, and the idea of getting together, it was a big family. We could basically get together almost every month for at least a birthday, an anniversary, or something. And we live further away because of work. So for us to get there, it was a big deal. Some of them live close and they could just come minutes. They would be at the homestead. So we would have to drive for hours and hours, sometimes in the winter, which is not fun, to be at these family events. And, after a while, it kind of wore on us because we're just always traveling. And then you add children to the mix. Children don't always travel well. So now you have little kids and all of that. And you got to bring all this crap with you to travel and sleeping on couches and whatever. And, it just, there was a stress level because now our new family, my wife Jen and I, creating a new home, new rituals, new identity as a couple. But we still have my family and we have Jen's family. And we're torn between the three. We want to create our own traditions, but we love the traditions that I grew up with. Jen loves the traditions that she grew up with. So we're battling this give and take in our relationship right from the beginning. And I kind of struggled with that, I think, early in our marriage because we lacked identity because our identity was our families. And then we had to compromise. Well, this part of the family gets together every Christmas Eve. This part of the family gets together on Christmas Day. This part of the family does gifts on this part. And this part of the family does gifts on this part. We have the big dinner on this day. We have the big dinner on the same day. Now we have to pick and choose a side. Do we do one family one year and then we do the other family the following year? So we're wrestling, trying to keep a piece of our family and who we were, but then create identity for ourselves. When I was growing up, it was me, my parents, and my sister. And for the most part, we traveled every single holiday. So every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, whatever, we were the ones who got in the car and did the road trip. Again, we lived usually further away than everybody else, but we were always driving. So I never woke up in my own bed as a child on Christmas morning. Never. I was always at a relative's house, sleeping at their house, waking up at their place. I never knew what it felt like to wake up in my own bed or go to bed Christmas Eve and wake up in my own house. Never. I never experienced that until I was in college, pretty much. I was always at my relative's house. And Jen was the opposite. She always woke up in her home and surrounded by family and hardly ever traveled. So you can see right there's a difference, right, that we have to work through. We have to figure this out. So we're already setting ourselves up for some pretty substantial conversations, some substantial give and take. Somebody's got to bow and to this and allow the other person to have what they're used to. So beyond picking which cupboard the glasses go in, we had to also then pick our family and our future. And we came up with the idea that we wanted our kids to wake up in their own bed on Christmas morning. That was something we really wanted for our home, which caused some issues because, again, the family wanted to meet when the family wants to meet. And here it is, Dave and Jen, not here again on that evening. But we really wanted to create identity in our home for our kids to grow up and have their peace and their memories of waking up in their own bed on Christmas morning seemed like such a big thing that we could give to them. And that was one thing we decided on. So we stood strong in that and we stood up for that because we really wanted it for them. And I think when a couple gets married, they're not simply just joining each other's families. And I think that's the thing that we miss in all of this. It's not just that Jen became part of my family and I became part of her family, but Jen and I are starting a new family all on our own 31 years ago. And at the wedding, I would have loved to hear this from either side of the family, and it just didn't come up on the wedding day. But to hear a family member, a parent for either side, say to us, these words. I think we as empty nesters should be the ones to say these to our kids, but to have somebody say to us as newlyweds that today, this wedding marks the beginning of a new family unit. And as such, a new family unit needs to have the freedom to make their own decisions and create their own path. It's not an extension of the family, it's a new family. I think we get that wrong. And I think we put an undue amount of stress on a new marriage when compromise is asked of a new marriage, and the identity that's trying to be built between a couple is then stretched, and a lot of frustration thrown in as the expectation of family to continue being family. At the same time, a couple trying to create their own world. It's really a hard spot. And my request to you, if you have children that are at the age of they're going to be getting married or getting into relationships, is to not put undue stress on your kids, your adult kids, to pick a side, to make a choice, to bend their plans to your wishes as the parents of these adult children, because I think you're going to create some real issues down the road for your kids and their partners and their family and so on, and their family's family, right? So as we create this new world together as a new couple, we get to choose where we want to live, where we're going to work, if we're going to have a faith background for our family or not, how we're going to celebrate the traditional holidays, whatever that is for your family. So for me, it would be Christmas and Thanksgiving and all of that. And these choices that we make as in our marriage early on, these are ours to make. It's not going to be something that's made for us from our family or our new family unit. We have to make these choices ourselves. We need to be accountable to our marriage. We need to be accountable to each other as partners in this marriage and for the health of our family. The one thing that I think we can do as parents is give our kids an out. That we want our kids to realize that as much as we love them, they need to make these choices for themselves without our direct influence, without us putting our thumb on the scale, our foot on the scale, right? To let them make the choices that's right for their family, whether or not we agree with them. That's tough. Really tough. There's things that we're going to prefer for them, but we can't force them to do anything. They need to make their own family unit. So the one thing we've always said to our kids is that our home will always be open to them. All of our kids have the keys to the front door of the house. Whether we're home or not, they can walk into this house anytime they want. This is not, because when they moved out, didn't mean they left us and they're never having access to this house. This is their home. No matter where they travel, no matter any time of the year, they have access to the house anytime they want. They all have their own key to their home, the original home. The other side, though, is, with the exception of the fact that 2 of my 3 kids live in rental properties that my wife and I own right now. Like, we actually own these rental properties and we normally rent them out to non-family members. Right now, there's a season in their lives for 2 of my 3 kids where them and their partners are living in our rental properties. So with that as an exception, we don't have keys to our kids' homes, so we can't just go to their place, but they always have access to our place. Again, with the exception of the fact that 2 of the 3 are living in our current rental properties, which we do have keys for. But before they were there, we never had access to their home. They have access to ours. And if and when grandchildren come along, their choice to how they want to raise their kids is their choice. We can obviously give some suggestions if it's accepted by them, but we don't enforce how we would raise their children because it's their children. And I just think it would be healthy as parents for adult children getting into relationships and moving out of the house and creating their own family units, that we need to give them more space. And I think that's one thing we don't do well enough as parents. Our goal as parents of adult children out of the house, creating their own family unit, is to not pull our kids into our family dynamics, but rather to support them in creating a healthy family environment for themselves. Often the conflicts with extended family usually arise from differing traditions or expectations. So imagine if you have a faith background and your kids, your adult children, meet someone who doesn't have a faith background. Now what happens? You're Jewish and your kids marry someone who's not Jewish. Now what happens? Right? There's a whole dynamic that changes in that. Often conflicts with extended family usually arise from differing traditions, expectations, and while it's natural for families to have their own customs, it's crucial to recognize that you now have your own family unit, and our kids need to know that. And holding on too tightly can lead your adult children to establish hard boundaries just so that they can find their own space. So before it gets to that part where your children start pushing you away to create the space they need, I think we as the parents of adult children need to help them create that space. And even if they don't seem to need us, we'll obviously support them, we'll love them, we'll care for them as adult children in their new family units, but we purposely need to take ourselves out of the picture a little bit as they build their family unit with all the support, love, care, everything that we can offer, but still giving them some space. So as a dad, let's respect the boundaries that we place and our kids place, and also respect their independence. I think that's really important. As well, we really need to offer support without stepping in and overstepping our bounds. That's also very important. I think we need to consider that. We need to be available for advice when we're invited to give advice, but don't impose our views. And we need to respect the parenting choices that they make for their own home, even again, if it's different than yours. The biggest part in all this, I think, is to maintain communication between ourselves and our kids as they start their new family unit. Keep in touch regularly without expecting constant updates from them, that they have to return your calls or they have to be in touch with you. Don't expect it. And use active listening and be open-minded to questions to foster meaningful conversations with your kids. And you have to adapt your role. Transition from being an authority figure in your home with your kids to being more of a mentor, a confidant, a friend. Focus on building an adult-to-adult relationship instead of a parent-child relationship, which you're more used to. That's a big change. As an empty nest dad, that's a huge one right there. That adult-to-adult relationship is really hard sometimes. Very hard. As well, look for ways to improve yourself through self-care, personal growth, develop your own interests outside of parenting. It's time to make a switch. For me, podcasting is one of those things that I'm using to find my new role in life. Seek support from other fathers in groups like, Dad Space. And if grandchildren are in the future for you, make sure you respect your adult children's parenting decisions regarding their kids. Grandchildren are not your kids, they're your kids' kids. Make sure you offer help with grandchildren while adhering to the parents' boundaries. So if they have a meal plan for their children, don't subvert that, don't change that. how they want to raise their kids is you need to be the support for that, even if it differs from how you raised your own kids. I think dads can maintain a supportive and respectful relationship with their adult children as they navigate this new phase in life. And we have a privilege and the honor of seeing our kids take the life lessons they've learned under our roof, take them out into the world, adapt them for their own family. They're going to pick the good. They're going to challenge you on things that they don't think you did well. But you and I both know we did the best we can, the best we could with what we had at the time, the knowledge we had, the information we had. For many of us, my age group, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have resources like this. We didn't have community online. We didn't have access to the world at the fingertips and on our phone. So the world is different for them, and it was different for you. Every generation faces their own challenges unique to that generation, where the generation before them don't understand, don't get it. Your parents didn't understand you. Your parents didn't understand them. It's normal. Find a way to be a part of your kid's life without overtaking their space. So just as much as we need a dad space in our life, our kids need to figure out their space once they leave the home. If your kids haven't left home yet, they're still in high school, they're still in public school, they're still young, enjoy every moment. As a empty nest dad, I can tell you, you're going to miss these days. All the busyness, all the hustle and bustle, all the late nights, all the worrying, all the conflicts, all the happiness, everything. You're going to miss it all. So please, enjoy it while you can, because again, one day it's going to be gone. And I want you to not have any regrets when you get to this stage of your dad journey. You'll look back with pride and with celebration for good kids doing great things in this world. And I want you to know they wouldn't be here in this stage of their life and wouldn't be as who they are as human beings if it wasn't for you. So even though they don't need you like they did when they lived under your roof, they are the representation of you and all of those lessons taught and learned as they grew. So thanks for what you did. And for the dads that are still with your kids at home, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. Thanks for listening to Dad Space. Hey, thanks for listening to Dad Space. Thanks for hanging out to the end of the podcast. That's a great sign to wherever you're listening to this podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, fill in the blank, that this was a good podcast to send people to. So simply by listening to this point of the podcast, you're helping the show grow. So good on you. Thanks for helping us grow Dad Space. If you want to help us fill our cups over at Dad Space, head over to dadspace.ca. Dadspace.ca, simple website, right? Dadspace.ca. You can fill up our coffee cup, which helps us then to keep moving forward with the podcast, and use our Buy Me a Coffee link over at dadspace.ca. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for coming back. And thank you for sharing. Because the more dads we can help, the better. We're all here to help each other grow in community. That's what it's all about. And without you, podcast is pointless. There's no reason to do any of this. So you being here means everything. See you at dadspace.ca. Take care.